just go ahead and get into it. Let's get down and dirty with this debate, and we're going to head to it. All right. So I'm making a case for Hendon Hooker. And there's a lot of people who you could say were snubbed, but he is actually the one that I'm choosing to go with. And so looking at his stats, he had 100. These are just stats. Now we're going to get into intangibles in a little bit, but he was 175.5 rating, which was second in all college football. 324 yards per game, which led the SEC. He was ninth overall in college football. 69.6 completion rating. 3,135 yards passing. 430 yards rushing. And that's not to take away his 2021 season. And I know that you shouldn't look in the past for these awards, but he had a stellar 2021 season. And so I'd like to actually give you a quote given by Stetson Bennett on this whole situation. Here's what Stetson had to say. Yeah, and I also don't think it's fair to Hendon. He's a great player. I don't think it should be spoke of in that light. I think he should be getting respect for the year he had and not what could have been. He was almost single-handedly the main factor in that program changing course. And I have to agree with him. Now, this is not a down and dirty debate where Ken and I are going to debate each other, because I think Bryce Young could have been in consideration as well. Here you can see some of the stats that Hendon Hooker had. Was the SEC Player of the Year, which definitely should factor in because he swept that award. All the people who voted for that, he swept that award clean. And so I think he should have been in it, and we'll hit on intangibles like I said. Ken, what about Bryce Young? Give me some highlights.
I want to talk about Hendon Hooker.
Let's do it.
I mean, as an Alabama fan, you got to talk about the year Hendon Hooker had. Tennessee won 10 games this year, their first time since 2003. What would their record have been? It was 10-2 this year had they not had Hendon Hooker at quarterback. You insert Joe Milton there instead of Hendon Hooker. What games you lose? I think you certainly lose the Alabama game for sure. I don't think he throws 5 touchdowns to Jalen Hyde in that football game. There may have been another. Tennessee was involved in some big blowout games this year. But look, he was the leader of a team, and when you take a leader off, you don't just replace statistics. There's the intangibles there, the leadership qualities. You saw what happened to Tennessee when Jeremy Banks didn't make the trip to South Carolina. Their defense lost their heart, because their leader wasn't there. And so,
it's tough to watch.
Look, he had a fantastic season. Okay, do I think he should have been invited? Yes, I think he could have made the top 4. Would I have voted for him over Caleb Williams? Perhaps. I might have if I had a vote, but. You just don't give it to the team that has the best overall record, but who's the best football player? It's just like the college football playoff litmus test of the 4 teams. It's supposed to be the best 4 teams. You can tell a lot by eyeball, how they react on the sidelines. Look, I sat by Hendon Hooker's parents right beside them in the end zone last year of a Tennessee game when I was up there with watching Alontae Taylor, and I was there with Nate and Laura and my wife. We was up there watching the game, and I sat right between them, right beside them, and they're good quality people. To me, I said it was one of the most important transfers early in this college football transfer portal. Tennessee landing him totally turned their program around. But I have a couple strikes against Mr. Hooker, okay? And I know Vol Nation's going to get mad at me, but you got to look at the big games head to head, okay? So let's look at the quarterback comparisons between him and Stetson Bennett.
All right.
Both teams were unbeaten on CBS. Now, Tennessee fans did some things to stoke up Stetson Bennett. You remember the late-night phone calls, the 2 a.m. in the morning that he, after he threw a touchdown, he referenced with a phone call. But let's look at the stats against Stetson Bennett in the Georgia-Tennessee game. Hooker was 23 of 33, 195 yards passing. So he got held way below he was over 300 plus, about 324 average per game. 1 interception. So no touchdowns, less than 200 yards, Georgia defense. Best in the nation, held him down. Conversely, Stetson Bennett, he completed less passes. He went 17 for 25, but 257 yards and 2 big touchdowns, including a 75-yard bomb early in that game to Arion Smith in that game. So Georgia dominated that game. I think that hurt Hooker. I think he went into that game as a leader. That week on Go Ball Sports, I said, hey, He's a leader. At that time, Stetson Bennett not even mentioned in the conversation.
Right.
I think Bennett got in because Georgia kept winning, and because they kept winning, and because these other players were injured, and so it was by default. Now Hooker against Radler, he got outplayed that game. 6 touchdowns for Radler, 3 to Hooker, and then if you look at Bryce Young against Hooker threw 5 touchdowns against Alabama. That's what got him in the Heisman conversation. The big game on the national stage. They took down Goliath, and they took down Alabama. In that game, Bryce Young threw for 455 yards in that game himself.
And that's good that you say that, and especially once we start talking about intangibles. You have a guy like Hendon Hooker, and you start looking at things like the people who need to be involved in these conversations step up in the moments where they're needed. Now, granted, Tennessee hasn't really had a chance to be in those moments in the past, if we all know what we're saying. Tennessee has had an issue with going into those games as the underdog. Well, this year, you have Tennessee saying, we have a chance to beat Alabama. We really do. And so they counted on Hendon Hooker to handle that game. When he didn't step up against Georgia like that, then you have to start looking at his whole season as a whole. But I like your arguments. I do agree with you. I think there are better cases with some of the finalists for a Heisman, not all.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear your view on Bryce Young as well.
Yeah, look, Bryce Young, fantastic football player. I think Alabama could have lost 4 games this year without Bryce Young. So what does a player mean to his team? I still think he's the best quarterback and the best player in college football. He didn't have the best season this year. He is the best player, but he did not have the best season. He had an injury, and they lost 2 tough games. If he wins either one of those games, Alabama's in the college football playoffs. They lose on the last play of the game, 2 games, and Bryce Young is squarely looking at perhaps a repeat on the Heisman Trophy. But great character guy, leader of his team. He may play the bowl game in the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State. He may opt out. I think he's going to end up playing. But that's the character of Bryce Young. But look, these are the voters I have a problem with. I had a great conversation with a knowledgeable football friend of mine that I graduated high school with, Scott Jones, on the way over here. And he said, this is what I think happened. He said, I think some of the Big Ten voters intentionally put Hooker like down 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, low. He said, I think other conferences ganged up on the SEC. They did. They did it to Tua, and I guarantee you they did it to Hendon Hooker. Some of these guys need to have – I know the Heisman Trophy winners, past, they automatically get votes. But there's some in the media that they don't watch near the football games that we do here on Go Ball Sports. We sit down and get a smorgasbord of games and watch it from nonstop in the morning till Saturday night, and then the recap shows and all the highlights and stuff. You know, when we're casuals, man, we're armchair quarterbacks here. But I guarantee you we can make a more of an educated guess and do better on a lot of these votes, both on the College Football Playoff Committee and, my last word, the Heisman Trophy. And look, you got a couple pictures of Caleb Williams. I think that you might be able to cue up here. But look, again, I'm going to get to this, folks. This man painted, I don't know if he painted his fingernails for the Heisman, or not, but cocky, brash. Look, pride leads to folly. Pride leads to destruction. The humble will be exalted. And, this guy may be in for a big fall in the NFL. We remember Johnny Manziel.
Yep.
Okay, we remember him when he threw touchdowns in 2012, showing the money signs. Yeah, everybody in Aggie Land loved it. They loved it in College Station.
Right.
He beat Alabama, so now he's a hero, man.
Joe Burrow.
And Joe, but Joe, I think, handles it with a little bit more class than he does. And Baker Mayfield, we're going to talk about him later.
Yep.
Maybe he's making a resurrection of sorts, but he was pretty cocky too, if you remember, at Ohio Stadium at Ohio State when the Sooners beat the Buckeyes. He took a Sooner flag and planted it on the O at midfield, which, stoked some people in a bad way, including me. When Scott and I had the Chastain show, I lambasted, that situation when Baker Mayfield did that. You don't ridicule another team on their field like that, in my opinion.
And so finishing up, talking real quick about the intangibles, because I think that's an important thing to hit on when you talk about guys like this, even Bijan Robinson, or Blake Corum, who they both had great years. Bijan was 1,580 yards rushing, 18 touchdowns. Blake was 1,463 yards. Blake also had 5.9 yards per carry. That's a little crazy. But you talk about intangibles, and Ken, I know that you had a case putting Tua Tagovailoa as the Heisman winner the year that he lost.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Mm-hmm. The intangibles that he brought, and the same thing that you're talking about, Bryce Young, the intangibles that he brings to Alabama, when you put him as one of the best Alabama quarterbacks of all time, that's saying something, folks.
Yeah.
When you put Hendon Hooker in the very illustrious line of best Tennessee quarterbacks of all time, that's saying something. And this is not a show where we're going to spout ideas and we're gonna hit you with facts. The facts are, guys will follow these quarterbacks to the end of the playing field and beyond, off the cliff, because they believe in them so much.
That's right. Character travels.
Yeah.
And Tua got his revenge against Kyler Murray. That same year that Murray won the Heisman Trophy, Alabama played Oklahoma in the first round of the playoffs, and Tua had him up 28-0, I think, in 4 touchdowns with 10 minutes to go in the second quarter of that football game. So he showed who the better quarterback was between those two in college, and I think he's shown it in the pros who's better between those two as well.
I agree. Well, that.
So, look, I wish Hendon Hooker the best. I think he can have a very good NFL career. You see dual threat quarterbacks. Look, he throws the ball better than Jalen Hurts does. Jalen was a work in progress. Saban had to continue to work on his passing and refine his passing techniques. We know what the guy was, a warrior in the workout room, could squat 600-plus pounds. They had to cut him off and cut the weights down so he wouldn't hurt himself. But he's evolved now as a passer, and now he's got the Eagles with the best record in the NFL.
And that's what we can say about both quarterbacks. We know that Bryce Young is going to bounce back from that injury stronger than ever and more determined, like a Tom Brady determined, to be the best that he can be. And the same thing with Hendon Hooker. He's going to get to the next level. He's going to prove why he needed to be, just like Tua did, why he needed to be the Heisman winner. So, Ken, hey, we settled down.